All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a massive, incredibly frustrating issue that plagues so many modern businesses, and that is why companies completely fail at executing great strategies. If you've ever felt like your organization is just running on a treadmill, moving super fast but getting absolutely nowhere, well, this is for sure for you. We're going to base this on Stephen Bungay's deep historical analysis in his brilliant book, The Art of Action.
So I want to kick things off by asking a really big question, one that's absolutely central to everything we're talking about today. Why do perfect, beautifully crafted strategies just shatter the moment they hit reality? I mean, think about it. Management teams spend months, sometimes even years, developing the absolute perfect plan, only to watch it completely fall apart the second it leaves the boardroom. Why does this happen so consistently across literally every industry? Well, the answer to this modern execution problem doesn't actually lie in modern management theory at all. It actually lies in history. In The Art of Action, Stephen Bungay gives us a radical, military-inspired solution to this exact problem of corporate stagnation, and he draws heavily on the 19th century Prussian army to do it. But before we get to the solution, we really need to understand the modern disease. Okay, let's jump into Section 1, the illusion of bustling activity. Let's look at two totally opposite types of companies that somehow suffer from the exact same inability to execute. On one side, you have a global tech company. It's decentralized, super fast-paced, relies on a vague matrix structure. Then, on the other side, you've got a global pharma company. It is highly centralized, strictly regulated, and totally top-down. Yet, despite being day and night, in both of these environments, strategic execution is completely paralyzed. And it gets so ridiculously bad at the centralized pharma company. I mean, we're talking about an industry where it takes 11 to 15 years and $800 million just to launch a single new drug, right? But the executives are reduced to absolute absurdity. Because the system is just bogged down by something like 2,500 standard operating procedures, people become totally terrified to make actual decisions. So instead, you literally have top managers, people overseeing billion-dollar budgets, getting dragged into intense arguments over what color to paint the conference room walls. It's just the ultimate illusion of activity, completely masking an absence of meaningful action. And this massive disconnect is captured perfectly by this one frustrated manager at the tech company. Picture this. It's a major leadership summit. The CEO just laid out this brilliant, sweeping new strategy. And a manager literally stands up and says, "I understand the strategy. I agree with it, but what do I actually need to do?" Because let's be real. A high-level strategy means absolutely nothing if the people on the ground don't know what concrete actions to take on a random Tuesday morning to make it happen. Moving right along to Section 2, the corporate machine syndrome. So where does this paralysis actually come from? The root of this problem goes all the way back to 1911 when Frederick Taylor introduced scientific management. Now, Taylor was a genius at optimizing really simple, repetitive tasks like loading pig iron onto train cars. But his philosophy tragically infected all of corporate management. It treats organizations like predictable, well-oiled machines, and it treats employees like mindless cogs. It assumes that perfect planning from the top down is totally possible, that the thinkers shouldn't be the doers, and that there is strictly one robotic, right way to do things. Which brings us to our historical twist in Section 3, the military concept of friction. To solve this illusion of control, we've got to turn to a brilliant 19th century military strategist, Karl von Clausewitz, and his concept of friction. Clausewitz wrote that friction is basically what distinguishes real war from a war drawn up on paper. He used this great analogy of a traveler. You plan a quick trip, but suddenly the horses are bad, the road is ruined, and a massive storm hits out of nowhere. Friction recognizes that external chaos and human unpredictability guarantee that absolutely no perfect plan will ever survive reality. Because every individual in an organization is a human being, simply trying to get them to move together naturally creates organizational friction. And because of this, Clausewitz championed a massive paradigm shift over 200 years ago. He realized that a successful organization absolutely is not a machine. Machines are predictable, they're rigid, and they're incredibly fragile. Think about it. If one single gear breaks, the whole thing grinds to a halt. Instead, an organization has to be viewed as a living, breathing organism. It is adaptable, it's fundamentally human, and it responds organically to the chaos of its environment. Let's break down exactly how this impacts us in Section 4, the 3 strategy gaps.
According to Bungay, this natural friction creates 3 inevitable execution gaps in our strategy. First up is the knowledge gap. That's the difference between what we desperately want to know to make a perfect plan and what we actually know in a fast-changing world. Second is the alignment gap. This is the big disconnect between what leaders want people to do and what the employees actually end up doing. And finally, the results gap. This is the chasm between the outcomes we hope to achieve and what actually happens when our actions violently collide with a complex, unpredictable market.
But here is the tragic irony. When modern managers face these gaps, what do? Faced with the knowledge gap, they panic and demand more data, more deep analysis, endless meetings. Faced with the alignment gap, they issue tighter, highly detailed instructions, literally creating thousands of rigid procedures. And faced with the results gap, they implement incredibly strict metrics, like having 64 different KPIs per department. This flawed response doesn't fix the problem at all. It actually makes the friction incredibly worse and completely paralyzes the team. It is essentially treating a living organism like it's just a broken machine.
All right, the ultimate solution is here in Section 5. Directed opportunism.
This is a military-tested framework that closes those 3 gaps in 3 simple but completely profound steps. Step 1. Leaders have to decide what truly matters. This is your strategic intent. Step 2. They must clearly communicate what needs to be done and exactly why it matters. And step 3. This is the game changer. Give employees the freedom to figure out the how. You set the boundaries, you clarify the mission, and then you just get out of the way. Let your team adapt to the friction on the ground in real time.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. Look closely at your own teams, your own projects. What would actually happen in your workplace if you stopped treating people like cogs in a predictable machine? What if you stopped suffocating them with endless procedures and instead empowered them to think, adapt, and act on their own within a very clear strategic intent? Because the art of action really isn't about perfectly predicting the future. It's about building an organism that is totally capable of navigating it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.